Some games change the world, and some change your mind about ever pre-ordering again. Today, we're counting down 8 glorious gaming flops. The titles that promised the moon and delivered a loading screen. So grab your popcorn, your controller, and maybe a box of tissues, because this is gonna hurt. Emotionally, financially, and maybe spiritually. Let's go. Anthem. The game that made everyone go, yo, is this Iron Man with guns in space? And then 2 hours later go, yo, is this it? On paper, Anthem had everything. Developed by BioWare, the same studio that gave us Mass Effect and Dragon Age. Published by EA, so okay, maybe that was the first red flag. Gorgeous world, jetpack-fueled flight mechanics, co-op action with customizable exosuits called javelins, straight-up power fantasy stuff. It looked like Destiny and Iron Man had a baby, and then that baby grew up and dropped out of college to become a loot shooter with no loot worth shooting for. And what went wrong? The story was boring. And coming from BioWare, that was like going to a Gordon Ramsay restaurant and getting microwaved pizza. The missions were copy-paste. Fly here, shoot these guys, defend this spot, repeat. Loot was so boring even the enemies didn't want it. It had this live service structure with big plans, except they forgot to actually make the base game fun first. To top it all off, it launched buggy, missing features, and felt like it needed another year in the oven. Anthem had genuine potential. The flying felt awesome, the world looked amazing, and the concept was fresh. But instead of becoming the next big thing, it became the next big meme.
Has its own unique playstyle.
My head 1,000 times. The Avengers take the fall despite saving the day.
Marvel's Avengers. Marvel's Avengers is a masterclass in how to fumble a billion-dollar franchise. So imagine this, you've got the Avengers license, you've got Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics, the team behind the awesome Tomb Raider reboots, you've got a massive budget, iconic characters, and the hype of Endgame still echoing in the air. And then you release a game that feels like it was assembled by Ultron on low battery. Why it had potential? Play as Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Black Widow, Miss Marvel, and Cap. Each with their own moveset, big action set pieces. A story mode that actually starts off pretty solid. It was supposed to be this evolving live service hero game with endless content and gear grinding. What went wrong? Oh boy, let's count the ways. Repetitive missions. Go to bunker, press button, fight waves, leave, repeat forever. Enemy variety? Nah, just robots. More robots. Then some slightly different robots. Loot system? Somehow made legendary gear feel less exciting than a bag of trail mix. Cosmetics locked behind grindy events or overpriced microtransactions. Multiplayer? Janky and weirdly restrictive. Post-launch content was a drip feed. Players were starving while the devs were like, here's a new Hulk emote. Marvel's Avengers is the kind of game where you go in thinking you're gonna save the world, and end up saving up for better gear you don't even need.
Tower to fall.
Babylon's Fall. This one is the textbook definition of, how did this even happen? Okay, so picture this. You hear Platinum Games is making a new action title. The same Platinum that made Bayonetta, Nier Automata, Metal Gear Rising. Instantly, your gamer senses start tingling. You're expecting tight combat, wild bosses, and stylish mayhem. Then you see the trailer and go, wait, is this a PS2 game? Did someone smear Vaseline on the screen? What was the hype? Climb a giant tower. Battle your way through hordes of enemies. Use 4 weapons at once. Yeah, 4. 2 in your hands, 2 floating behind you like you're an anime god. It was meant to be a co-op action RPG, with slick combos and a unique art style. What went wrong? The visuals looked like they were streaming from 2008 on dial-up internet. Combat felt clunky, not platinum slick. Minimal enemy variety, copy-pasted mission design. Babylon's Fall was like a bad Tinder date. Looked decent in screenshots, sounded promising, but the moment it showed up in real life, you were like, oh no. Battlefield 2042. It had so much potential. I mean, it had the massive maps, crazy weather, and the specialist system, which was supposed to let you play however you wanted. You could be a medic, engineer, or even just be that guy who always stands on top of a building sniping people for fun. But then, boom, launch day hits, and it's like they brought a knife to a gunfight. The game was glitchy as heck, with broken servers, hit registration issues, and bugs that made it feel like the game was still in beta. The specialists were cool in theory, but the lack of the classic Battlefield classes made it feel like something was missing. And don't even get started on the maps. They were huge, sure, but some of them were just empty. You'd run for miles, only to get sniped by someone you couldn't even see. Like, who thought, hey, let's make a map the size of a small country, without realizing that, maybe it would be fun if you could actually find some action? So yeah, the potential was there. Cool ideas, massive scope, and all that, but it kind of flipped like a pancake.
Whoa.
Forspoken. Forspoken had all the ingredients to be a banger. A massive open world, a main character with magic powers and New York attitude. Combat that looked like Doctor Strange meets Devil May Cry. And it was Square Enix, not some indie team in a basement. The early trailers showed spell-slinging, epic boss fights, and this fluid parkour system where you sprinted across mountains like you were on magical Red Bull. The Luminous engine was flexing hard. This was supposed to be a next-gen showcase, a real PS5-era moment. Well, the second people actually heard the dialogue, felt like it was written by ChatGPT after binge-watching TikTok. The combat, while flashy, got repetitive fast. The open world was empty. Not to mention, weird pacing, bland side quests, a main character who came off more annoyed than inspired. It was like the game wanted to be epic, emotional, and sarcastic, but didn't really nail any of them. It wasn't horrible. It just couldn't live up to the hype it created. So instead of being the magical savior of next-gen RPGs, it ended up as a $70 meme generator. Ghostwire Tokyo, a game that looked like it was going to be a ghostly masterpiece, but instead, it got lost in the fog. So imagine this. Tango Gameworks, the studio behind the creepy The Evil Within series, announces a new game. It's set in a hauntingly beautiful Tokyo, with a blend of spooky supernatural and action-packed combat, fighting weird-ass ghosts while looking cooler than your average Japanese protagonist. Why it had potential? Tokyo, but with a ghost apocalypse? A beautiful, eerie playground where you can fight yokai and supernatural creatures? Yes, please. The first-person combat looked fresh, and to shoot elemental powers was like if the Matrix took a wrong turn into Jujutsu Kaisen. The art style was unique, a combination of modern Tokyo with mystical, surreal elements that felt like a blend of horror and Japanese folklore. So here's the thing, Ghostwire had all the right ingredients for a fresh horror action game, but it feels like they forgot to actually add fun to the recipe. Combat gets repetitive fast. The elemental powers are cool, but after the first few hours, it felt like you were just doing the same thing over and over again. The open world felt more like a ghost town. The environment was beautiful, sure, but it was empty, like really empty. The story was confusing. At first, it seems like it's building to some deep, weird supernatural tale, but then it just leaves you with, "We'll explain this later," which never comes. The pacing was a joke. You start off strong, but soon you're just stumbling through random side missions and ghost slaying, wondering when the plot is going to actually, start. By the time it gets interesting, you're already too bored to care. Redfall. Redfall was supposed to be the cool new vampire slayer on the block, but instead, it showed up with garlic breath and tripped over its own shoelaces. Alright, so here's the pitch. It's an open-world co-op shooter. You're battling vampires in a creepy small town, and it's made by Arcane, the geniuses behind Dishonored and Prey games that are basically stealthy masterclasses. It had potential. The trailers looked fire. Spooky towns, psychic powers, slick weapons. The idea of teaming up with friends to liberate neighborhoods from bloodsuckers? Pure vibes. What went wrong? The AI was so bad, vampires just stood there like confused interns on their first day. The world felt dead. Not undead, just empty. The characters wouldn't shut up, constantly dropping corny one-liners. Missions were copy-paste quests that felt like a checklist from hell. And worst of all, it launched at full price. On Game Pass, sure, but still. This thing came out with the energy of a half-baked beta. Redfall is what happens when you try to make a vampire game, but forget to include the bite.
Not end requires a soldier without end.
Great! We're in position! Move out!
The Order, 1886. So back in 2015, The Order dropped as a PS4 exclusive, and this game was hyped. We're talking steampunk London, werewolves, cinematic visuals that melted your eyeballs. And you're a knight with a mustache so glorious, it could have been a main character. People saw the trailers and were like, yo, is this a game or a Christopher Nolan movie with shotguns? Why it had potential? Graphically insane. It was one of the best looking games of the PS4 generation. Super stylish world-building Victorian London, but with electric rifles and Tesla gadgets? Chef's kiss. It had a unique vibe, like if Sherlock Holmes, Van Helsing, and Gears of War had a foggy, slow-motion baby. So you boot it up expecting this epic monster hunting experience, and what you get is 4 hours of gameplay, 6 hours of cutscenes, and about 12 minutes where you actually feel like you're doing something. It's one of those games where you finally get control of your character, take 3 steps, and then another cinematic kicks in. Also, combat was basic. Gears of War style cover shooting, but with none of the depth. No replay value, no multiplayer, no open world, despite feeling like it should have been. The Order 1886 is the kind of game you show your friends to flex your PS4's graphics, but you never actually recommend they play it. It was pretty, it was moody, and it was shorter than a TikTok attention span. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.